Hey college football fans, welcome to episode 27 of Walk It Off with Chappy. And sticking with our theme this week of SEC takes that I beg to differ with, we're going to go with the take of Auburn football and how they've, quote, lost too much this year, and how Coach Bryan Harsin has created a toxic culture there. I say BS, I say false on that. Now, true, there have been some players, not a whole handful, but some players that left and expressed their disgruntlement with Coach Harsin. But what program that has lost players to transfer or to even graduation, especially when it's a new coach, somebody that they didn't pick to come in? How many times have we seen that through programs, not just across the SEC, but across college football, where they say, it just wasn't a good fit, I didn't like the way I was treated. And let's take this on a per-person basis. Everybody's different, everybody has a different threshold, but there were still a lot of players that stuck around. Even guys that at first put themselves in the portal, but decided to stay. Guys like Tank Bigsby and Javarius Johnson. Now, that's just naming a few, but my point in starting here is that I don't buy into the fact that Coach Harsin is a toxic character that is creating negative ripples in the Auburn community there. So let's go back on the field and let's look at what they did last year. So people point and say, well, Auburn started off 6-2, that's great, but they lost their last 5 games of the season. Okay, well, of those 5 losses, 4 of them came by single digits. One of them was in double overtime where they really should have beat Alabama at home. And we'll leave out the circumstances there. But you look at their 6 wins last year, they didn't just squeak by. Auburn won 5 of those 6 games by double digits. So they took care of their opposition in their wins. And in those 7 losses, like I said, 5 of them, or 4 of them, were by single digits. So they were darn close. You look at the players that they had perform well in that Alabama game in the Iron Bowl, a good number of them come back. Bigsby, TJ Finley, who was a 65% completion rate in that game, threw 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Derek Hall, who had 3.5 TFLs and 3 sacks of Bryce Young. Marcus Harris, who had 2 tackles for loss at D tackle, he comes back. Colby Wooden was the Auburn Tigers' leading tackler in that game with 11 stops. He's back on that front. So what are we looking at for Auburn in 2022? Well, offensively, they return a great 1-2 punch. They bring a Tank and a Hunter. Okay, so Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, each of them averaged over 5 yards per carry on the ground last year. They return 4 starting offensive linemen that are strong and physical. We talked about how they bring back Finley. Zach Calzada comes over from Texas A&M. By the way, the same Zach Calzada that beat Alabama at A&M last year. And they also get Robbie Ashford, a very versatile quarterback transfer from Oregon who could be an X factor. A lot of people look at their wide receivers and say they lost too much with the top 2 targets that graduated or transferred out, Kobe Hudson and Demetrius Robertson. But there's a lot that many don't see at the surface in terms of talent that the Tigers have. I'm talking like Shedrick Jackson, Javarius Johnson, Landon King is an up-and-comer who's going to be a mismatched tight end wide receiver hybrid. And then speaking of tight end, they've got a deep group. Samuel Shanker set a school record for receptions for a tight end. He was all-conference last year. Tyler Fromm, Luke Deal, just to name a couple other ones. And we know that Harsin likes to use his tight ends. Defensively, strong defensive line. So Wooden, Hall, Echo, Leota provide great pass rushing abilities on the edge. Marcus Harris, Oregon transfer Jason Jones, who's a mountain of a man, as well as top JUCO defensive lineman Jeffrey Emba coming in. So they're going to be not only stocked in the starters, but also deep. Linebackers Owen Papoe and Eugene Asante, who transfers over from North Carolina. And SEC fans might remember a couple years ago when he had a great game, a breakout game against Texas A&M in that bowl game for North Carolina. And then you look in the secondary, Nehemiah Pritchett, they really like him. I really like that guy. Jalen Simpson, 2 pretty good corners, but they also get DJ James transferring over from Oregon. They have the #1 JUCO corner, Keontae Smith. and they like their young talent at safety, especially Marquise Gilbert, who was the #1 JUCO safety last year, not to mention, you know, a couple other guys that they had, like Ream as one of their young safeties. So all said, and I know this went a little long, but Auburn I think will be just fine, and that's a team you don't really want to sleep on in the SEC this year. So tell me what you think. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at Chappy CFB. I'm Chappy, and this is what I know.